Hello there, welcome to the show. This is going to be the final set of shows of the year. I'll do a best of probably either late this week or early next week. I don't have exact time when I'm doing it. I'm still got a few films I want to watch, but this is the last of the proper shows, so this will be it for a while. Because in January I tend to be fairly kind of, I'm lazy in January, so don't expect much in January. But to end it all, I think I've got some good stuff. So I'm starting off with Cloud and Charisma, which are two films by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who's the other Kurosawa, the Kurosawa that people get confused with. That's not the one that did Seven Samurai, right? That kind of thing. Like, unless you're an actual fan of like Asian films, you're like going to be confused. Kids, you only have one Kurosawa in the average normie mind, basically. So Kurosawa has been working for decades now, and he's done some great stuff like Cure and Pulse. And recently he's been having a bit of a comeback, at least in visibility. He's always been working. But the way things go with filmmaking is you have your time when everyone loves you, then you keep making films, and then you kind of are just another director, and then every so often you put back up with a film that everyone loves again, and that's you for a while. And that's what Kurosawa's got at the moment with Cloud. Cloud is one of those films that has done really well and has got a lot of attention, but he has been working for years. Sometimes it's horror-based, sometimes it's not. So, I'm going to do Cloud. I'm also going to do one of his earlier films, Charisma, which came out after Cure, before Pulse, and it came out to like a lack of comprehension by most of the audience, because they were like, what is this? What's going on here? This is strange. And it just was just like a strange film, because it looks like realism, but it's not really realism. Because it starts off as a cop film where this guy is a workaholic cop in a police department that's probably very inefficient. He's been overworked. He's overworking himself. He's just like obsessed by getting, the best work he can do. Keep working at stuff, keep going. And unfortunately, what that means is he's just like barely hanging on. So he goes to a situation with a politician where he's been held hostage, and when he's a chance to shoot the killer, he doesn't, because he thinks there's something to the killer, to the kidnapper, that's needs help. So it ends up, what happens is the politician gets killed, and then the policeman shoots the killer, shoots the hostage taker, then he gets basically told, just go away for a while because no one wants you here. And then while he's away, he's told, you're fired, basically. Just bring in your gun and your badge. But at that point, he's already got a bus miles away into the countryside. Just, he wants away from people. He phones his family and says, you won't see me for a while. And he just basically goes to this place that's in a forest, as far as the bus journey would take him. And he just wants away from everybody. He just wants away from people. So he goes from someone who's intensely focused on the working man to just be in nature. And when he's in nature, he's trying to figure it out, because what he finds is in nature, people are just as crazy as they are in the city. He comes to nature, not sure why he wants to be there, but when he gets there, he's almost set alight straight away and then saved. He gets brought into this community of people who are looking after the forest, and they all seem to be people who are, just odd, obsessive, odd. They'll try to take care of the forest, but they think there's a tree that that is killing the forest because it's an infected tree, and they want rid of it. But there's a guy who's protecting the tree because it was planted by a professor. who he looked up to. So this young man, who acts like a kid, but he's a young man, he is protecting this tree, and he will proceed with violence, even with a sword, to keep people away. Meanwhile, the cop watches all of this and doesn't get involved for a time. He ends up running into this local scientist who's into forestry, and that's her job. And she's got a sister who's a bit crazy. They communicate, and he gets to know a lot more about the tree. But the young man's basically saying, "Don't listen to her. She's got all new modern stuff, but none of that actually works." What the tree is, she says the tree's a poisonous tree that puts out dangerous chemicals that infect the rest of the area, so it can survive, and every other tree around it, but it dies. She has told the people who want rid of the tree this, and they want to come and take the tree off. But every time they try and get near it, the young man comes at them and beats them up. The cop starts to help the young man with the tree, but he's still trying to figure it all out and try to figure all these people out because they're all a little bit crazy. The sister of the woman who's an expert on all these trees, she says, "Don't trust my sister. She's actually poisoning the area. It's not the tree, it's her." She's trying to poison everything to bring everything back to so everything will die, then be reborn in a natural environment. She's trying to get rid of everything that's rotten in the area. So she says her sister's crazy. The men in the area want rid of the tree because they think that's the source of the infection, and the young man is trying to protect the tree. The young man calls the tree charisma. And it becomes obvious that the young man's obsessed with this tree as a way just to deal with his problems. So there's that element of the cop is dealing with lots of crazy people with their psychoses and trying to make sense of it all. And into this mix comes these rich people who want to buy the tree because they're going to sell it to someone else, or they're representing someone who wants to buy it for a lot of money. And it's suddenly of worth to them. And it just causes more craziness. And then as the story goes on, you see the cop find a charisma tree of his own. It's not the same tree, but he obsesses over it the same way the young man obsesses over this tree called charisma. And it becomes this thing of obsession of nature, of trying to control nature in a kind of humanistic way. In a way, you're placing nature in human supernatural laws rather than what nature actually is. What nature actually is nature doesn't care about man. Nature goes on its own. We can live or die as long as nature is concerned. We don't matter. So it becomes a story about ecology. It also becomes a story about mass craziness in an area of how people can actually get to an area where there's almost nothing and still find something to argue about, find something to be tribal about. And no one quite knows if they're right or wrong. Everyone's got strong opinions. Everyone's got passions. And that's what all they're holding on to, because you're sensing this a community where people have gone because their lives are a mess. Like, from the experts to the people who just come here and are committed amateurs, everyone feels like they have something invested. The young man's got a mother who's sick and dying, and everything just feels is out of control. And the cops try to make sense of it all, while also dealing with the after effects of his own problems. And he realizes he's not immune to any of these situations. He becomes a help for the young man, and to find out more about this obsession the young man has, but also he's been affected by it. So it's a story about craziness, nature, and not defining anything. The film does not define what you should think of it. It just places the story there. As the story goes on, you feel more and more the world's going out of control, but that could just simply be the perspective of the characters. They may be getting crazy. Well, they probably are getting crazy, but there's something wonderful about it. But it's a film that early on you're wondering what's going on here. This just feels odd. But as you get into it more and more, it feels very clear and very structured in its own way, that things accumulate so that it feels like it makes sense emotionally by the end of the film, even though you might not be able to put into words of what it's about. But you just have to have patience with it because it is beautiful. So Charisma is definitely worth watching. It's on iTunes just now. It's going to be released soon on Blu-ray alongside Cloud. They're both getting released as double bill. Cloud is a new film that was released in 2024 in some places, 2025 in other places. It is very similar to Charisma in certain ways, in the sense as it builds slowly so that you have an idea where it's going early on to what you think it's going to go to, and it goes somewhere else. So it's about a young man who is a reseller on the internet. He buys stuff cheap, and he resells them for a lot of money to people who might not know any better. So it's just online buys. So if he buys something and it turns out not to do well, he loses money. But if it does well, he'll gain money. He's got a normal job, but he wants to do this full time. And as the film goes on, you're watching his way of working, you're watching his emotional disattachment to people, his emotional distance, and how he can't really communicate with people unless it's in his terms. But as you're watching, try to work out where's this film going, you see him have friendships with certain people that he doesn't treat very well, and you see him just not really be a person that, you know, is trustworthy, or, you know, has any knowledge of kindness. He cuts people off. He's verbally distant from them. Like, he keeps everyone at a distance. And as the film goes on, this becomes a problem for lots of people. But the film never tells you where it's going. It goes to a place that's very satisfying. And it's a place that could have been very tacky, but the way it's done is wonderful. And it does have a point. When you get to the end, you know what the point is. But it's hard to explain. That's why I left this to the second film. Because it's a new film, and I don't want to explain it in a way that gives away where it's going, or it's going to try and simplify it too much. What I'm going to say is basically you have to have patience with this film, because the first half is all build up, and then the second half is everything paying off, and you're starting to get the reasons for things happening. You're starting to get the suggestion of where everything's going slowly but surely. You try to work out whose motivations are what, and it all comes together at the end. But you have to have patience early on, because it's not set us up as a normal thriller where you've got 20 minutes in, you've got a clue where it's going. 40 minutes in, you definitely know where it's going. An hour in, you're well into the action. This one, no, it takes a long time for you to get a clue what the character's about, get a clue where the film's going, because it's paced, the first hour's paced like it's a setup. And it doesn't really care if you get a bit lost. It's going to go at its own deliberate pace. And then at a certain point it kicks in. And it's like it's a ride up and then ride down. And it is wonderful what happens in it. But it will not tell you where it's going. And that's what's really good about Kurosawa films, is they have a kind of, or the film ones I've seen, is like, they're not in a hurry to tell you what kind of film they are, or what's their intention. It's like this, the same thing happened with Cure and Pulse, where there was this sense of, it unfolds, and you're meant to have patience to understand the structure of the film and where it's going. It's not trying to throw stuff at you all the time to, keep your interest. It's like, it expects you to be grown up and pay attention. And the tension is well served once you're into the ride of the film. And both of these films, the acting's terrific. No one's been showy. Everything's done at a deliberate pace with the acting. No one's trying to have their big scene. Everyone's part of the puzzle of these films to give you an idea of what's going on. A few actors get some showy bits, but most of the time it doesn't happen. What it really is about the kind of the characters and where the characters are in their life and the atmosphere of the film, the slow build of tension without you having to place where the tension is coming from. It's just like, you know, something bad's going on, but you can't quite work out where it's going to evolve to in either film. And that's what makes them wonderful. That's why you should go watch the films, because it's unexpected where they go, and it is delightful once you find out where they're going, because it really makes you wait. So I hope this video gets you interested in watching both these films, because they are beautiful and they are great to watch. So that's me for now with these. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you all later. Right, bye.